everyone, it's Priya here, and in today's video we are going to be discussing color wheels. Now this is a color wheel that I've purchased from my art store. You get a variety of different types of them, and they're very helpful for you to you decide color palettes as well as to use for mixing colors, so that you can find the exact colors that you're looking for when you are doing your painting. Now I do have this one for many years and it's been very helpful, but I do think it's important for us as artists, beginners and advanced artists, to create your own color wheels. I think it's very important because it helps you to learn how to mix colors and also to see the capabilities of the colors that you've got. So you can see these are some of the color wheels I've done with different watercolor sets as well as different gouache sets. This was just a trial for me to see how the colors mix together and what I can achieve with 3 colors from each set. So you can see it's very helpful to create your own color wheels, and I've got those 3 colors. This is the pale geranium lake, and I've got cadmium yellow and ultramarine blue. I've got these all in my palette, so I'm going to be using them from the palette, and these are just the tubes. This is the Faber-Castell watercolors. I've got a palette that I'm going to be using for mixing the colors, and I've got a round brush which I'm going to be using to apply the paint to my paper, and a cup with clean water. Now I've also got a sketchbook. Now I'm going to be starting a new sketchbook, and I'm using the Hahnemuhle Nostalgia sketchbook. This is an A4 size book, and you could do this on a separate single leaf or sheet of paper. It doesn't have to be a sketchbook, but I'm using a sketchbook. This is not a watercolor sketchbook, but I'm going to be using watercolors in it. It holds up quite well with it. It doesn't really give me any issues, so I'm going to be using the sketchbook for it because the paper is quite thick. So that's one thing to remember. If you are doing a color wheel and you want it to last, use a thicker paper. Even for putting your paint down, I think it's better to have a thicker paper. I've just created a circle, and I've just created 12 segments in that circle, and I've created 3 rings around it. So I've got the outer ring, I've got the middle ring, and I've got a center ring, and I've got the 12 segments. Now those are all the segments that we're going to use to paint in the primary colors, the secondary colors, and the tertiary colors. And I'm also going to be painting in different tints and shades of the colors, which are going to be on the 2 outer rings. So that I'm going to come to later in the video, but at the moment I'm just doing using a waterproof ink or fine liner, and I'm just drawing in the lines and outlining everything. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not worried if it's a bit skew or not, my lines are not straight enough, or my circles a bit skew the lines. As long as you just have a guide for you to paint in, that's perfectly fine. Remember, as artists, whether you're a beginner or you are a professional artist, I think it's very important for us to create color wheels for ourselves, for our different mediums or paints that we're using, just so that we get an idea, whether we're using color pencils or different brands of color pencils, paints, watercolors, gouache, acrylics. It gives us an idea of the paints and how they blend together, what the colors look like when you blend them. And I just think that's very important for us to have an idea of how to mix colors and get a feel for it. Especially for beginners, it's very important, I think, to create your own color wheel, just to get an idea and feel how it is to mix colors. So once again, I said the 3 primaries I'm using here are ultramarine, I'm using pale geranium lake, and I'm using cadmium yellow. That's just to create the 3 primary colors that I'm going to be using to create all the other colors. So now once I have my circle and I've just erased all the pencil, I'm now going in with the primary colors, and I'm painting in the 3 different triangles in the center section of the circle, and I'm leaving 3 spaces or 3 segments that I've drawn. I'm leaving 3 segments between each primary, because those are going to be used for the secondary colors and the tertiary colors that I'm going to be painting in, and then I'm going to be mixing. So you can see now I just went in and painted the red, the yellow, and the blue, and I'm just painting in a little swatch of the 3 that I'm going to be using. After I'm done with the entire painting of this page, I'm going to go in and make some notes. I think that's also useful if you want to, if you're a beginner, just to get an idea of your, primary, secondary, tertiary colors, and, the different things that you can, or colors you can achieve from them, and the combinations of mixing. You can make your notes however is suitable or which you prefer. So now I've mixed some red and some blue, and I've got a purple. So I'm painting that in the middle or between the two red and blue, there's 3 segments. In the center one, I'm painting that because on the side, on either side, you're going to have your tertiary colors. And I'm mixing a blue and a yellow to get a green. And remember that the amount of water you use, as well as the different amounts and quantities of pigment or paint you use, you're going to have different colors. They're going to come out a bit differently. So now I've mixed the yellow and the red, and I got orange, and I'm painting that into the center between the red and the yellow. Now remember to you can go over and paint another layer if you want your paint to look more saturated, which I'm going to do later on because watercolors are very transparent when they dry. So you can see now I'm mixing a bit more yellow to that green that I've created, the secondary color, and I'm getting a lighter green, which is my tertiary color, and I've added more blue to that secondary green that we created, and I created a darker green. Now I'm adding some more blue to that purple, which we created a secondary color purple, and I'm getting a darker hue of the purple, and I'm going to add more red to that secondary color, and I'm going to get a tertiary red or tertiary purple, which is a lighter, more reddish purple. Now I'm going to repeat this for the other side, and I'm going to do the same with the red and yellow. I'm going to mix the colors. Now I'm going to add more yellow to that orange that I painted down, and I'm going to get a more yellow orange. Now you can see it's going on a bit darker here because my orange that I initially painted for the secondary color is a bit too light. It dried very light. So I'm going to come in and add another layer over that. But now I've added more red to that orange that we created initially, and that makes it a bit more of a darker orange. Now that center, I'm going to, as I said, I am going to add another layer. Even for now, you can see I'm going over that layer of the the layer for the tertiary darker green. You can see I'm just going over some of those colors. Now it's very important for you to experiment and see how you want your color wheel to look, because it is interesting, and it looks nice to have a color wheel that's very representative of the paints that you are using and the sets that you are using. So you can see I went in with orange. I've added a saturated looking orange compared to the orange that was there as a secondary color, and then the oranges on either side is a darker orange and a lighter orange, with depending on the yellow and the red added to it, which made your tertiary colors. So now what I'm doing is I'm using some white. Now with every color we create, we have there the primaries, secondaries, and the tertiaries, or the 2 tertiaries. I'm adding some white to each color. Now I'm painting that on the first inner circle, the inner ring that I've got. I'm painting that in that ring for each color. So every color that I've mixed, I'm just adding a bit of white to create a tint. So any hue you've got, which hues are your colors, so any color that you've got, if you add a hint of white, it'll give you a more pastel color. That'll give you a tint. So you've got the lighter tones, and that'll give you your tints of each color. Now I'm going to do this for all the colors going around that ring, and make sure that I've got all of them with a bit of white, and then that's going to give me my ring with all the tints of those specific colors in those different segments. Now this exercise is very important. As I said, especially for beginners, it's important for you to learn how to mix colors. And I think it's also a nice fun exercise for other artists that are more on professional level to get a feel for your materials, go back to basics and try out different ways of mixing colors and different colors you can create. You can create different types of color wheels. You can create more colors than these if you want. It doesn't only have to be 12 segments. You can have more than that. But I think it's a good exercise to, get used to mixing colors, especially for beginners. It's good to, be able to mix any color. Like I said, the color wheels are very helpful, the ones you purchase in store. but it's important to try out making your own color wheel, because the colors that you have in the color wheel that you purchase from the stores, you may not have the exact colors as they are on those color wheels. So that it helps to have your own color wheel of your specific color or set that you've got of your paint or your medium that you're using, color pencil, whatever it is. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating shades. Each hue or each color that I've got there, I'm adding a bit of or hint of black. That'll give me my shades. So remember, adding a bit of white gives you a tint, and adding a bit more black, that gives you a shade. But be very careful with black, because black is a very, very dark. I mean, black is the darkest on the spectrum of colors. So if you try adding too much of black, you're going to get a muddy blackish color that's not going to have any, not going to reflect any of the colors that you actually are painting. So if I'm painting a blue, it's not going to look blue, it's going to look black, like really dark. So try to use a very small amount of black when you are mixing it with each color to get your shades. So that I'm going to do all around for all the different colors, and I'm going to get the different shades, and I'm going to paint those in. This is a very fun exercise. I enjoy doing it because it just gets me back to the basics, and it's a fun activity to play around with my paints, and not have the pressure of trying to create a particular artwork, or trying to create a artwork with a specific palette or anything in mind. I'm just creating colors and playing around with my paints, and I think that's very important for us as artists, all to have that time where you go back, play around with different palettes, play around with different colors and mixing different colors, and see how all of those work for you in your artwork and with the medium you're using. Remember, you can do this color wheel with any paint or medium that you want. You can use any color pencil, any acrylics, gouache, watercolors, it doesn't matter. You can use this for any supply that you're using, and it can be very beneficial to you. Even if you do this only once, you would ever do this, I think you can gain a lot of knowledge and experience to mixing colors with it, which will benefit you in all your artwork that you're going to create after this, because you will already have a feel for how you can adjust colors to get the color that you're specifically looking for. So if you're looking for a specific green, you'll know how it feels to mix the blues and the yellows to get a specific green. So even if you have a paint set that doesn't have the green you need, you'll know how to mix it. So that's just an example, but that's how it'll help you in the future when you are doing your paintings and drawings. It'll really come in handy by having this exercise done, that you know how to mix colors. So now, as I said before, if you want a more saturated and smoother looking color wheel, you can go over some of the colors. Sometimes the watercolors does dry very transparent, so you're not going to have a very rich saturated color, so you can go over it again. It's up to you how you want to do that, but I think it's helpful to have a more accurate representation of your paints by having a darker color, so it gives you actually a color and it's not looking too light where you won't be able to see the actual colors. So you can see I've got my primaries, the red, the yellow and blue. Then I've got my secondaries, the green, the purple and the orange. And then I've got my two tertiaries of each mixture of colors or combination of colors on either side of every secondary. And then I've got my tints and I've got all my shades. So those are very important basic steps to creating your color wheel. So at this point we are done with the color wheel. I'm just going to do a few more things that I would think that is important for you to know. I haven't done it in this video, but I will just let you know that if you mix your primaries together, especially equal proportions, you should get a mid-tone or brown. So if you want to get browns, if you mix all three primaries together, you should get a brown color. So if you're looking for how to mix brown, that's how you mix brown, by mixing all the primaries together. Now what I'm creating here, which I think is important for all artists to do, is to create a value scale. Now this will help a lot when you are trying to find different, shadows and for highlights. Your value scale is basically using white and black and combining them in different ratios and quantities to create a value of range of colors of grays in between the white and the black. Now I've got 10 here from the white to the black, but you can create as many as you want by slowly adding a little more black to the white, and to create a little darker, slightly darker gray as you grow your value scale to black. And I've just got also another just a gradient there going from black to white. And now I'm just painting in some analogous colors. Now analogous colors are the colors next to each other on the color wheel. In this case, yellow, orange, and red. This will give you your one set of analogous colors, warmer tones, and then you could have your green, blue, and purple, which would be another set of analogous colors next door to each other on the color wheel, but that'll be more your cooler tones. So those are very important. Like if you're looking for schemes for your painting, if you want cooler colors, then you'd go on to the cooler side, which is your greens, blues, and purples. If you're looking for more warmer colors in your painting, then you'd look at maybe yellows and oranges and reds. Now I'm making all my notes here. You can make whatever notes are suitable for you and what you want to have written down for your color wheel. And basically that is what I've done for a color wheel, and that's creating your color wheel. It's a very simple process, but especially for beginners, it may seem like a lot, but once you start creating many color wheels, you'll get used to it, and it'll become something that you will not find very challenging in the future. So I guess that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have, don't forget to like and share. It really helps the channel out. Also, if you'd like to see other art videos and art content that I put up on my channel, then you could consider subscribing. I've also got a Patreon where you can see other art videos that I have up on my Patreon, and tutorials and art videos and art journaling videos that I have up. So you can visit my Patreon. Link will be in the description box below if you're interested in that. So thanks again for watching. Till the next one. Bye.